You don't need I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and last night we had a pretty insane throw in the LPL by OMG. So in this video, I'm going to go over that game specifically, but I'm also going to discuss the CREME conspiracy. So it's mostly a joke. I don't think that OMG is actively conspiring against CREME in an attempt to sabotage his League of Legends career. But when you look at somebody like Abel making the kind of play that he made last night to throw away this game, you have to start asking the question. The other thing that I wanted to discuss and think about is what kinds of champions should you be putting your mid laner onto if they are the most important player on your team and the carry of the team, because like I know that in general in League of Legends we talk about like what's meta, what are the best champions at any given time, but there are certain team factors that will often override the meta itself, because if your best player is your mid laner, like specifically for the Cream example, if your best player is Cream and you're OMG, why are you going to limit the playmaking ability of this guy and throw him onto Victor or Corki, where the types of plays they can make are very impactful and can win a game, but it's not necessarily the way that Cream wants to win a game. So that's my hypothesis for that portion of the video. I'm going to go through the Leaguepedia to look at like the champions that he's been successful on so far and stuff like that. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if he is, like kind of saying, I want to play Victor, I want to play Corki, but a lot of the time those types of picks that just become ubiquitous, I guess is the right word, like when they get to that point, I often ask myself, why are teams just doing this blindly and not taking their own team into consideration? So yeah, those are the games that happened yesterday. Well, that's the main game that happened yesterday. OMG against LGD. OMG won, and then I think the other one was BLG against Rare Atom, and BLG won. So yeah, let's go to this. So I have the Epic Pen. So I'm gonna run through this, and then we'll kind of discuss it. So before we get too far into it, I guess a few things to consider. OMG is up 7,000 gold. You can't really see the other gold number, but they're up roughly 7,000 gold, which should be an unassailable gold lead in League of Legends, in my opinion. You have LGD in the mid lane. You have OMG in the jungle, in like the Chemtech Shroud, so they're not visible to the enemy team. They have the inside track to Dragon. So theoretically, since they're on Soul Point, they have 3 dragons. You could kind of like block them from. Oh, actually, I put that on the wrong screen. You can block LGD from like advancing into the river, especially when you have a champion like Victor, Gangplank. That's why you pick these champions, is to establish a position over here and then force the enemy team to walk into you. It's going to get additional value from Victor, additional value from Gangplank. It's going to make engaging easier for Nautilus, and it'll make everything easier for Aphelios as well. So LGD starts to make their way through, and I think that this was very smart from LGD to kind of force to be the ones to engage this and start this with the Ornn ultimate, because it helps break up OMG their position. So let's just see how it goes. Maybe I should slow it down. So as we play this out, you see that Aki immediately, well, after the Ornn ultimate is cast, Aki automatically looks to get onto someone, which in and of itself isn't the best, like probably not necessary. So he goes in, takes a lot of damage, uses his ultimate, gets almost gets hit by chompers, and then has to flash out. So the only thing that's happened so far is Ornn used his ultimate, and then Aki went nuts. And then he was about to get outdone by Abel. So again, we're looking at this. Abel starts looking for an opportunity to go in, as well as Nautilus. So Nautilus, it's absolutely insane. Abel was back here. Abel decides to run at the enemy team, and they're going on to the Orianna. The Orianna is not the most important champion for LGD, and I genuinely don't understand why they were going after Orianna. For Orianna to feel like they did an okay job in this fight, their job is to get off like one rotation and their ultimate, and then shield the Jinx. If they do that and die, and the team loses the team fight, like, you're not going to be like, oh, wow, Yedge, you should have done better. You should have done more. Like, it's just, you're not going to complain about that, I don't think. So let's clear this off. And then let's just watch what Abel does. So Abel used the item active to dash forward. Right there. And then decided to flash onto Orianna. So maybe the idea was, I can one-shot all three of these players at the same time, but you have an Aphelios on their own with a 7,000 gold lead, soul point, flashing in and putting themselves in harm's way. So, a question to ask is, if this game was closer, would Abel have felt like that was even a possibility? And if the answer is no, then that's not the kind of play you want to make. Like, just take the high percentage play, force them to come even closer to Dragon. You don't even need to start Dragon. Just come back around here towards the Dragon Pit, into this choke area that kind of looks like a person, and just use your abilities. Let your team start poking down LGD or trying to get Jinx or Orianna into a vulnerable position, because right now you have Victor over here. He's not a part of the fight, really. You have Gangplank over here, so two of your damage sources are not even by Abel. So it's really on Abel to one-shot the Orianna for this play to make any sense at all. So just keep playing it out. So after going all the way in like a complete psychopath, he does a decent amount of damage to two of the champions, but then Orianna uses Zanya's, which you have to expect that kind of thing. And Shadow's allowed to turn and do almost all of Abel's health bar just because of his positioning. So it was a very high-risk play, and it just didn't really work out. Then Yedge didn't even play this optimally. If they waited another split second, they could have theoretically gotten like a triple kill. But the team fight was already won at that point. So just a really questionable decision-making from OMG. You have this gigantic gold lead. You have champions with the ability to punish LGD for walking into the Dragon Pit, and instead they take this crazy fight that they really didn't have to do. Like, Gangplank still had Flash at the beginning of that fight. Abel had Flash. Aki had Flash. I just don't get it. So it is a pretty big concern that sort of play happens. But like I said, there are multiple things that I was trying to take into consideration when looking at this, because I think that you need to be somewhat concerned if you're OMG, because your AD carry is absolutely wild for even considering making that kind of play. But then after that, it's like, okay, well, that didn't necessarily lose us the game on its own. It made it more competitive for sure, but that wasn't the last fight or anything like that. But that's really the game changer, because after winning this fight, they were able to reduce the gold deficit to 2,000 gold, and then you have things like Ornn's passive coming into play, because the gold value that you get from the upgraded items is considerable. I think at level 16, you're able to upgrade 3 of your teammates' items, or that's the third one that you can do. So it's like the first one is worth at least 1,000 gold, second one's worth at least 1,000 gold, the third one's worth at least 1,000 gold, and you have Orianna who scales well, you have Jinx who scales well, so it's a problem. That was a problem. And it's like, this is the time. If OMG really wanted to make this fight the game-winning fight, they could have done that, but the execution was absolutely horrible. So let's go to OMG. Then let's go to statistics. Actually, let's go to. I'm gonna go to stats, and then let's take a look at their history. And before I show you the players or the champions, the reason I want to do this is because there is a reason that we think that CREME has a very high upside as a professional mid laner. A lot of it has to do with the types of champions they play, their high mechanical skill cap, and the fact that he's demonstrated that on the pro stage. Like, that's why we like CREME. So let's look at LDL Summer. 5-1 on Akali, 2-4 on Silas, which is not great. 1-5 on LeBlanc, not great. 2-3 on Lucian. So a lot of losses, but a lot of assassin-style champions. They were playing into the identity of their player, which is a good thing. LDL, OMG, or whatever team he was playing on in 2020, as a part of the OMD. So as a part of OMD, maybe OMD wasn't the best team. Maybe he didn't have the players around him that could like help him play to his playstyle, but at least they were playing around his playstyle. It's showcasing his ability to play assassin type champions. So obviously that's an identity that CREME has kind of had for a long time. Then in LDL, again, we have Silas, we have Akali games, so not a great win rate, 40% win rate overall, but a lot of that doesn't have to do specifically with CREME. That can be a limitation of the team that they're on. Then we go to the LPL. So now we're on the professional stage. We get 6-2 on Akali, so obviously they're a very good Akali player. Viego mid, so then we don't know the matchup factors and all that. Victor 1-2, so a negative win rate on Victor still. And again, OMG is not the best team, so we don't expect his win rates on all these champions to be extremely high. But when you look at something like the Akali win rate at 75%, there's two things that happen that allow that to be the case. First of all, they get themselves in a draft that the other team leaves open the possibility of Akali by not banning it, and also by drafting a team composition that might be vulnerable to an Akali. And then you need to have a player on OMG that's willing to pick Akali into their team composition and punish them. And a lot of the times you get some of those factors, but then they don't end up punishing it. So the fact that CREME can punish in those situations is very good, and that's one of the reasons why he has these insane performances that we all are very impressed by. And then this year, 3-1 on Corki, 2-2 on Victor. So if you know that Corki and Victor are going to be the two most common champions, and you're not necessarily going to create a draft advantage by picking Corki or Victor into Corki or Victor, then you need to think to yourself, like, how is a team like OMG, who relies on their mid laner to create plays, do a ridiculous amount of damage, carry in the late game, have just like very high playmaking potential, how is that player supposed to accomplish that when they're playing Corki, when they're playing Victor? It's a completely different play style, and they didn't play around the play style correctly, which makes me question how comfortable CREME is on those champions. Because I remember watching some of their Corki performances, and it was either like the team was winning by so much that it didn't matter they were playing Corki, they just had a huge economic advantage in the game, or it was like, okay, well, they're in a losing position, they have Corki, he doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing, he packages he doesn't have the best packages and stuff like that. So it's like just frustrating to watch. I know that it's not easy for these coaches to kind of pick ban around specific players, because then if you become predictable, then the other team can kind of bait you into stuff. But once you hit the level where Corky Victor is expected in every single match, if you know that CREME is the playmaker you need him to be, or if you know that CREME is going to be one of your main playmakers and probably the most important player on your team, then you need to go find new champions that you can utilize to punish those picks. So that's basically all I wanted to say about that. Just somewhat frustrating. Ridiculous throw. 7K is just wild. So tomorrow we have Invictus Gaming against Ultra Prime. I think that Ultra Prime is the... Well, I don't think that Ultra Prime is the favorite. Ultra Prime are the favorites. They should be the favorites. They have a very good bot lane. I like Elk and Xiaoxi a lot. I think that we don't know much about Zika. Shun is probably better than Hacker straight up. ZS is probably better than Zika straight up. Cryan, Elk, and Xiaoxi better than their counterparts on Invictus Gaming. Yukai, I think, has had some really good performances. He kind of looks like somebody who may have decent upside. Yukai. 2 and 6. Victor Corky. Victor, Corky, LeBlanc, Vex. So, like, the Vex game was good because they were in a spot where they were punishing the other team's draft. LeBlanc, kind of the same thing. When you're going into these handshakes in the mid lane, it's tough for the team that is not as good to create a winning advantage. And I think that Ultra Prime, they are the kind of team who might be predictable around Cryan because you know he wants to play Corky. You know he wants to play Vic. Well, you expect him to play Corky Victor, Twisted Fate, champions like that. So let's see. That might be a spot that Invictus Gaming can actually exploit then. I don't know for sure, but you have to kind of think to yourself, okay, Invictus Gaming is going to have the chance to play LeBlanc, have the chance to play Vex into somebody like Cryan, because if you leave open Corky, you're going to get the matchup that you want most likely. But you'd have to first rotation it because Ultra Prime could always just ban it away. And then the second match, Anyone's Legends against Thunder Talk. ZDZ is better than New. Actually, I don't know about that. Xiaohao and Frigid, I don't know much about either player. Maple is the more experienced player than Captain. But Captain is kind of a highly thought after player from like the developmental league. So I wouldn't be shocked if Captain was better than Maple, but Maple didn't look so... Maple looked pretty good in their last match. And then Betty and Chow Chow against Puff and Southwind. Betty and Chow Chow have looked good in some of their matches as well. So I think that I would lean towards Anyone's Legends. I think the money line is probably bigger than what it should be, but I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. So that's it. We have one more 2-game slate, and then Wednesday we get some more performances. Bet365 hasn't released their lines yet, so I don't have that for betting content. But I hope you found this video informative. If you have any opinions on ThrowMG and like their ridiculous throw and like the potential CREME conspiracy, feel free to leave a comment. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.